Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Um, yeah, today we're going to be kind of going through some of the changes that have come to kind of how cross-sections are made within GeoGraphix. All the same workflows are still there. We just made kind of one change. And some of you may have already noticed it if you're already working in the latest version. Whenever you're picking these cross-sections, once you've pick your cross section, you're ready to open it. Where do you want to open it? X section or in GVERSE Geo Plus? So I'll kind of walk through kind of what that means here with this version today. So I think with that, we'll just kind of jump right into it and start looking into these changes here. So I'm going to be working here in our Williston Basin project. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this project. We use it for a lot of trainings and presentations here. Just kind of a good all-around project. I'm going to be kind of starting at GeoAtlas to kind of show these changes. Cross-section picking is still done the exact same way that you've been doing it before. Like I said, it's just going to be that one change once you've actually picked the cross-section. Where do you want to send it? And again, I kind of pointed out it's going to be either X section or Geo Plus. Now, Geo Plus is the GeoVerse Geo modeling application. Again, some of you may have already be familiar with that application. Not too much has really changed on the end there. We just kind of changed the name of it from the Geo modeling to the Geo Plus. But the key change that kind of came along with it is what we call the decoupling of the model from the cross section. And so we'll walk through what that means. Now, starting here in GeoAtlas, I want to go ahead and pick a cross section. And before I go ahead and pick that cross section, I'm going to go ahead and highlight the wells and kind of show me the wells that I want to put into that cross section, namely the ones that have the vector data that I want to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and do some conditional pies here to highlight those wells and bring up my wells with digital logs. So I see them there highlighted in red. I'm going to pick a cross section kind of running diagonal here, kind of starting up here in the northwest corner, working my way southeast, picking up about 5 wells, and then I'm going to send that into Geo Plus. So let me zoom into that. So far, all this is still pretty much standard of what you guys have seen in the past with the previous versions. We'll go to cross section, define cross section. I'm going to do a well-to-well cross section here. So again, we'll start up here kind of in the northwest, work my way across here, picking up a couple of these wells. And here I have 2 wells on top of each other, grabbing the one that ends in 00, as it's the one that has my vector data. Now, I'm going to go ahead and right click. And so normally this here is where you would just right click and say in definition, and it would open up that cross section and X section automatically. Now, however, you have the option. You can still go into X section, do all your work over there. X section is really good about quick correlation, straight line correlation between formations, just kind of seeing what the picks look like in all your wells. But we're going to go through the new option here. I'm going to send this over to GeoVerse Geo Plus. So those of you that haven't worked in Geo Plus before, the geo modeling is what it was before. This is kind of more of an interpretation tool, kind of a modeling interpretation, where I'm able to visualize my surfaces and work with everything kind of in a live 3D environment, where surfaces are going to be more modeled based on all those surrounding well information. Grids are generated automatically. As you pick tops, those grids will adjust. Not going to spend too much time kind of getting into Geo Plus. We have other webinars and resources available to kind of go into working with these the tool as a whole, mainly kind of showing, like I said, that main change that came along in here, that decoupling of the model from the cross section. So I'm just going to click close, just get past the splash screen here. And the first thing that's going to prompt you is an interpretation. Now, if you haven't worked in this application at all before, you'll just say create new at this point. There's no interpretation for you to start with. It's going to be a blank interpretation. What it'll do is it'll load in a well spot layer so you can see where your wells are located, and then it will open up your cross section. And that's essentially all that happens then. If you've already worked in here before and you have an existing interpretation, then you can load this cross section that you just picked in GeoAtlas into that that interpretation, that existing interpretation. I've got one I've set up here just for today's presentation. This one's basically, I haven't done anything in it. All I have is just opened it, and I've set up a template to use later on, but nothing else has been done here. So go ahead and choose the interpretation, and then I will say open. So GeoPlus works in these interpretation environments. Each user can kind of have their own interpretive way of working with the surfaces and the wells within here, primarily when it comes to picking points between wells and how that's going to affect the model surfaces. But I can see my my cross section has opened here in the GeoPlus application. So we'll kind of look at some of the key differences that you see within this cross section versus what you may have seen in X section. An X section, the layout is going to look generally the same in terms of what wells are showing in here and surfaces. Again, I'm kind of working from a template. You can apply these same templates over there in X section. But these major changes are going to kind of come in here in terms of the layout, namely what you see over here on this left-hand side. This is kind of our data panel of what I'm working with in the cross section. Normally in X section, if I wanted to view these surfaces along the wells that I see here, I'd have to go into my edit options, go into the layout and set it all up. However, in the GeoPlus application, once I first load in my my interpretation and load in this cross section here, the data that I can kind of see and apply here is automatically set up over here on this left-hand panel. I don't have to go into certain menus to find these things. I can just toggle them on and off as I need. So my cross section here I've set up with an interval starting at about 9,000 MD down to TD here. And I can see surfaces ranging from the Mission Canyon up here in the purple down to the Red River deeper down below here. And those surfaces, as you can see here, are automatically kind of toggled on. Namely, that's coming from the template that I'm applying here. But I could easily come in here and toggle on other surfaces, but these other ones are higher up than where my interval cutoff is, so I'm not going to turn them on because I'm not going to be able to see them. The surfaces that get loaded into your cross section, so again, going back to the X section example, those surfaces do not automatically get loaded into your cross section. You have to go in and manually select which ones you want to include. Here, when I'm not working in the model is not turned on here. The surfaces get loaded in automatically. It just reads whatever your active strat column is, and it loads in all the surfaces from there. So here's the 20 or so formations that I have in my active strat column already kind of included over here. And as you can see, again, these toggled here from the Mission Canyon down to the Red River, already displayed and toggled on. Now in this mode, we've just opened up the interpretation, opened up the cross section, no model is applied. These surfaces look exactly like they do in X section. So right now, no real major difference between what a cross section in X section looks like and what a cross section in GeoPlus looks like. Surfaces are straight line correlation from one well to the next as long as a pick exists in that well. And I can kind of go through here and adjust picks exactly like I do in X section. Another key change that kind of happened in here is this kind of second toolbar, your formation picking toolbar. We kind of changed some of the icons so it more closely resembles what you see in X section. One of the things we kind of wanted to do is the how do I phrase this, barrier of entry, I guess, to people getting into the old geomodeling, the old smart section, the old GeoPlus was, everything's different. I don't have to redo everything that I've already done in X section or GeoAtlas or anything else like that. So we're trying to kind of get around that to kind of show, okay, yeah, there's a lot of key features that are similar here, but there is a lot of powerful engineering that you can kind of do behind the scenes here within the GeoPlus application, which I'll kind of get to in a little bit here. But right now, the cross section, exactly as I would have had, picked it and created in X section, is now open in the GeoPlus application. If I look over here in the map view, I can see that the cross section is added. I haven't saved it yet, so I haven't given it a name, and I can see well spots are added in here. Another thing to kind of note here is that the interpretation works on a set of wells that are loaded into it. Right now, just the 5 wells from my cross section are the only wells loaded into my interpretation. Again, not really going to affect anything yet because I have not applied the model. So we're going to see kind of what happens once I actually do go ahead and apply that model. One other thing I want to point out with this, though, is, again, with this data panel, A couple things you can kind of do with this that's fairly useful and something you can't really get from within X section, or at least not readily, is when I'm working in this cross section, I want to know what data I have available for some of these wells. So I have this tab here, active well. I can click on a well, and it shows me the data that's available here for me. So I can see this well that I've clicked on. Here's all the vector curve data that it has. Doesn't have any raster images, log images are blank here. And again, I had to click through all the wells and I can see, okay, here's one that has a raster log available for it. And the last three also have raster log images available for it. And we'll look at here in a little bit as well. I can bring in my raster templates, my raster images from cross sections I've already made in X section, bring them over here very easily to kind of work with. So again, right now, nothing's changed too much in how this cross section looks in relation to what it looks like in X section. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and apply the model. And we're going to see kind of what happens here once I make that change. So along the top toolbar where I have that formation picking tool, off to the right is an icon here that says apply model. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And a little prompt here that says, okay, yep, you're about to activate the model. Any surfaces that are not active in the model will be removed from the cross section. So what that means is, for people that have worked in the geomodeling application before, whenever you build your interpretation, you choose which surfaces you want to display in there. So anything that I don't have toggled on will be removed from the section. So essentially, we're going to pull Mission Canyon down the Red River, so I'm not going to see the surfaces above it anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and click yes. And that's going to take me into kind of some of the model properties window where I can apply some of those settings. So you'll see kind of again that X section window. No surfaces are displayed here anymore. I don't see anything listed over here in the left-hand panel. So I need to kind of add those into my interpretation. So I basically activated the model. I've activated the GeoPlus engine. I'm now working within my interpretation and the interpretation settings. So I'm going to kind of pull these formations here. It's not the Bakken F. Let's do this one, all the way down to the Red River. Grabbing a couple of these formations. I'm going to load these into my interpretation. So again, another key change for those that are new to GeoPlus from what you can kind of do in X section is these surfaces are all modeled on one of three sources. Data points from your well-based formation table, IsoMap grids, and GVERSE Geophysics. So I can model these either based on all my formation picks, based on some sort of grid that I've already generated from GeoAtlas, or GVERSE Geophysics, some depth converted horizon that I picked within my geophysics interpretation. So I've got the surfaces I want loaded in here. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So now these are going to be loaded in. Still don't see anything in displayed here yet because the boxes are toggled off. So I'll go ahead and toggle those on. Just check the box, and I should see those displayed here now. Now, what I'm seeing here with these surfaces, and it's not kind of the best example, but the surfaces are now kind of modeled on what the gridded surfaces are kind of looking like within my interpretation. Now, this is mostly a very flat environment through here, so I'm not going to see much variation between the surfaces, but I can kind of start to see them a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and click on a surface. Now I'll see that it's not just a connection from one well to the next. I see points in between that are kind of being modeled based on other wells in the surrounding area. I haven't really loaded other wells in the surrounding area yet. So now I can go back over to my map view. I'm going to bring in some additional well information that's going to help me model some of these surfaces. So I can just click and drag a box around a group of wells around here, right click, load these wells into my interpretation. So this information is going to be useful for me as I have more well data to kind of work with. So surfaces are going to kind of adjust based on, okay, I see there's some more information here to kind of work with. Again, very flat area, so nothing changed too much. I got a little bit more variation here, kind of between the first two wells, a little bit up and dip up there in elevation. But for the most part now, I'm modeling these surfaces based on what my model is reading, as opposed to, again, like I said, those straight line correlations. If you like those straight line correlations and you kind of like the way that looked, you want to kind of model it more like what X section is doing, we can do that as well. Under draw modes, I can turn this on to straight line mode. For now, it's just straight line connection back to the way it was before. where I didn't have that model turned on. So yeah, you can kind of go through there and just kind of see, okay, I liked it in an X section, but I want to kind of work in here now. Okay, yeah, so I got some more well variation there. I just have to refresh it. I like the model. I want to see kind of what the surrounding area is going to look like, so I can see the changes in the surface as I look from one well to the next here. Okay. So yeah, the key change there is just applying that model, and I can come back up there and turn the model off, and it just unmodels everything. Now again, kind of that barrier to entry for a lot of people was, okay, I have to build an interpretation, I have to load in wells, I have to model, choose what surfaces I want to model, I have to redo all my cross sections. It's all just kind of confusing. There's a lot of buttons. I'm not used to this. So again, this is making it a little bit easier to kind of get started with working with these models. So you can kind of see how quick and easy that was to go from GeoAtlas, pick my cross section, bring it over into here, choose which surfaces I want to work with, and there it is. I'm able to model these things pretty easily. One other thing I want to kind of do here is we can go ahead and save this cross section. I'll just call this one 1. And I can see again over my cross section that's been added. You see surfaces are now able to be modeled within the map view. Again, without that model turned on, I can't really do much with the map other than display already existing layers. I can toggle on surfaces and see now these contoured maps of what these look like. I don't have to go through and build structure maps. I don't have to build anything else. I just toggle on a surface and it'll model that. It's using a triangulation planar with a little bit of minimum curvature for smoothing purposes, kind of hybrid algorithm there. It's locked. But I can take these surfaces over into GeoAtlas and kind of do more detailed gridding algorithms and grid settings if I want to over there. And this is kind of where you start to work with and play with your model. You're loading in additional wells, you're looking at other surfaces. I can come back into that cross section. I can put points between the wells to influence what the contours are doing by adding other points, data points to kind of influence it. So again, very easy to kind of get started with these interpretations now. The other thing I can kind of do with that, and again, this isn't necessarily a new feature, but I'll kind of look at it anyways in here for those that are kind of new to the GeoPlus application, or GeoModeling GeoPlus, is bringing in existing data that I've already been working with. Like I said, I'm doing a lot of my cross-section work over in X section. I want to get started more here in the GeoPlus application. Can I bring that data over? Anything I've worked on within within X section or within GeoAtlas, can I bring that information over? And the answer is yes. Any cross section that I've already created, I come up here to X section cross sections, and I can load that information. And I will use one that has raster logs this time, this correlation cross section. I'll open that up. It says added successfully. Do you want to open? I'll click yes. And then I don't want to bring over my inner well points. I'm just going to use I just got one surface modeled here. So this is a cross section that I have displaying a couple of raster images, one that does have some vector data in it. You can see it also brought over some of my interval picks that I've done in the X section. That information also carries over into here, so I don't have to repick any of that information. Now, looking at these raster logs, I can kind of click on them, go to my active well tab, and it shows me, okay, yep, this is just kind of carried over that image, and this is my density neutron large image that's being displayed here right now in this template. One of the other things we have in here as well is if that template, that track is a little thin, I want to make it a little bit wider. This might be a bigger log to kind of work with here. Is I can come up here to my system templates, and I have something called raster 5" any image. I'll right click, apply that to the active well. You'll see that is a much wider kind of track to display my image and makes it a little bit bigger, easier to see. I also have one for 2" if I'm kind of working with a thinner log. Apply that to the active well. So I'm able to kind of go through there and easily just apply different templates on the fly here to all these wells. I can say, okay, that 5" any image, let's go ahead and apply that to all the wells. Every well gets that same template. Obviously this well didn't have any raster data, so it's going to be a blank image, and I can click on that one and go back to using generic gamma ray res D or my cross-section template, whatever template I had displayed in there. But very easy to kind of swap templates in and out of my cross-section as I kind of display that data here. Same with the image that I'm displaying. So again, this is using the density neutron large, but this well also has a ladder log large image. So I kind of just say apply that to any image and swap images in and out of what's being used there in my templates. So I can come over here, keep applying whatever images I want to display in there. By just selecting the image, right click, apply, and that gets put in there. It's very easy to kind of swap that stuff in and out. Again, different to kind of how that's handled in the next section. At the various menus, set different hierarchies for which images I want to display in here. Here I can just go through and say, this is the image I want to view right now. Okay, I've done my correlation. Let's look at another log. Maybe I want to make some adjustments or something. Okay. I'll go ahead and save that section too. So yeah, any other additional cross sections I want to pick in here. So sometimes, looking at your map in GeoAtlas, maybe you're more used to what that map looks like over here. So it's easier for you to pick cross sections off of this versus what you're seeing there in the GeoPlus application. For instance, my red highlights where I can see wells set up by digital logs or anything else like that. Again, I can pick those here within GeoAtlas, open them up in GeoPlus, add them to my interpretation, and continue working with them there. So it's very easy to just go through there, pick the wells, send to GVERSE GeoPlus. And there it opens. This time it didn't prompt me for which interpretation I want to open it up in because I already have an interpretation open and I'm working with it. But yeah, brought that template over, brought those wells over, showed my surfaces being modeled here. So again, very easy to kind of bring that data in from one application to the other. So I'm sure there's always the question, what's the point? Why am I bringing this data over into GeoPlus when I can just bring this over into X section? And again, the main thing is going to be, how these surfaces are being modeled, what's being rendered, what's being drawn, what I'm kind of viewing here with all of this data. So basically, I'm able to see kind of that full, reading of surrounding well information to get me display of what these surfaces look like in relation to other wells, as opposed to just a straight line correlation connection between one well and the next. A lot more detail, a lot more information I can pull from that. In addition to that, I can also display all this data in a 3D environment. Again, something that you won't really get in the X section application there. I can see where my cross sections are. I can load in surfaces. I can bring in additional wells. Yeah, I'm able to view this in a 3D view, a map view, and a cross section view all at the same time. This tool also can predict tops. If I'm looking at where this well penetrates a grid, I can see in this is the Bakken surface here. The second well, there is no pick for the surface. It's got a dashed line going across here indicating this well penetrates this grid at this point. So I can look at that and say, yep, that's a correct pick, and I can make that an actual pick in my database. Or I can go through and move it, adjust it, say, nope, that's not quite what I'm looking for. I can even toggle that stuff off if I don't want to see it. So you have a lot more options, a lot more flexibility with what you can do with these models and these surfaces and cross sections in the GeoPlus application versus what you're seeing in X section. X section is not going away for people that still like using that for just quick correlation work. That's always going to be there. We just want to show that you can do the same thing over here in GeoPlus, plus a lot more. That's where the plus came from. So yeah, again, key thing here is I'm able to work in GeoAtlas where I've been doing a lot of my work. I have my map view over here. I'm used to looking at data this way. And now I can just carry that data over into GeoPlus. Very little barrier of entry to kind of work in that interpretation data over there. So yeah, just kind of one of the big changes there with cross-sectioning in the new version that we've got out now is 2022.1. And we'll continue kind of building on that. But like I said, key thing there is we're not taking anything away. We just want to kind of improve the tools you guys have, as well as introduce you guys to new ones.